What if I revealed that abandoning intimate connection after 60 could silently compromise your cardiovascular health, impair cognitive function, diminish muscular strength, and confine you to a fragile physical state beyond your control? Not in some distant future, but much sooner than you might imagine. And once this process begins, the deterioration becomes increasingly difficult to reverse. I'm Dr. Michael Anderson, a men's health specialist with 3 decades of experience helping senior men across America rediscover their vitality, passion, and independence. I recently treated a 74-year-old patient who passed away peacefully in his sleep, not from any sudden illness, but because he had abandoned the very connection that could have maintained his vibrancy and life force. This loss wasn't predetermined. It was entirely preventable. The very practice that many older men abandon, often due to societal stigma, fear, or misinformation, turns out to be crucial for maintaining not just sexual health, but emotional resilience, cardiovascular strength, and personal independence. This isn't about clinging to youth. It's about preserving the essential aspects of your being for the years ahead. In this video, I'll share the critical insights about self-intimacy that thousands of older men wish they had discovered decades earlier. You'll learn why maintaining private sexual activity isn't just normal. It's essential for sustaining blood circulation, neural activity, and youthful spirit well beyond 70. Stay with me until the end, where I'll reveal the most overlooked practice that could either preserve or compromise your vitality. A simple action you can implement today to reclaim what aging has been gradually taking away. Before we proceed, if you haven't already, please subscribe and enable notifications to ensure you never miss another life-changing insight designed to help you maintain strength, connection, and vitality at every stage of life. If this message resonates with you, type 1 in the comments. If you'd like to learn more, type 0. I'm here to listen and grow with you. The greatest threats to our well-being often don't strike suddenly. They creep into our lives unnoticed, gradually eroding our strength and spirit until we suddenly realize what's been lost. 1. The unseen decline nobody warns you about. Looking back on my decades of working with older men, there's a particular sorrow that stays with me. It's the pain of witnessing strong, proud individuals fade away, not from sudden illness, but from a gradual, unnoticed deterioration they never saw coming. They believed they were making the right choice, aging with dignity, accepting changes without question, letting go of their sexual identity. After all, isn't that what growing older is supposed to mean? But the reality is far more profound. What they surrendered wasn't just sexual activity. They gave up vitality. They lost strength, memory, independence, the very qualities that defined their essence. And they didn't realize it until it was too late. Let me share a particularly moving case. We'll call him Robert. At 72, when he first visited my office, he appeared significantly older. His posture was stooped. His complexion was pallid and thin. His voice was soft and uncertain. He revealed that he hadn't engaged in any form of sexual activity, including private intimacy, for over 15 years. Initially, he believed this was noble, even dignified, setting aside that aspect of his life. He thought he was aging with honor. But sitting in my office, with tears in his eyes, he confessed feeling like a shadow of his former self. He struggled with basic memory tasks. He was constantly fatigued. His muscles had weakened to the point where climbing stairs felt like scaling a mountain. What struck me most was his whispered confession, "I didn't know. If someone had just told me, if I had maintained that part of myself, perhaps I wouldn't be sitting here feeling like half a man." Robert's story isn't unique. It's a silent tragedy playing out in millions of lives. Without regular sexual stimulation, without keeping that energy alive, the body begins to shut down essential systems. Blood circulation decreases. Nerve endings degenerate. Hormones that support muscle tone, cognitive clarity, and emotional resilience decline sharply. The change is subtle at first, almost imperceptible. Slightly less strength, slightly more forgetfulness, slightly more fatigue. But over time, it compounds. By the time a man notices what's happening, the damage is severe and frighteningly difficult to reverse. Most men never receive this warning. No one sits them down and explains, maintaining intimate activity isn't just about sex. It's about survival. Society tells them that proper aging means surrendering that part of themselves. But true vitality requires the opposite. It demands nurturing, preserving, honoring that connection. Not for vanity, not for pride, but for health, independence, and life itself. If only more men had known earlier. If only someone had taken them aside at 60 or even 50 and said, "Don't let go. Keep the flame alive, even if it's just for yourself." How many lives would have remained stronger? How many regrets could have been avoided? I see this truth clearly now. But for too many, the lesson comes too late. There's a silent battle raging within your body right now, whether you feel it or not. And you possess more power than you realize to influence the outcome. But you must act before time permanently closes the door. 2. Why self-intimacy isn't just about pleasure, it's about survival. Throughout my career, I've observed men treating their sexuality as an optional aspect of their identity. Something to be quietly set aside once they reach a certain age, like a suit that no longer fits. But what they didn't realize, what I desperately wish more men had been taught earlier, is that their sexuality was never just about intimacy or pleasure. It was a fundamental component of their survival, strength, and mental clarity. Losing it was never meant to be part of healthy aging. Surrendering it without resistance was never nature's plan for them. I recall a conversation with another patient, Frank, a retired firefighter who prided himself on his resilience. At 68, he still appeared strong, but he confessed to losing something deeper, a spark, a vitality he couldn't explain. He told me he had abandoned all forms of sexual activity years earlier, believing it was what a dignified older man should do. But with that loss, he began noticing other things slipping away. A creeping fatigue, mental fog, subtle weakness in his legs. Initially, he dismissed these as normal aging. By the time he recognized something was wrong, it felt too late. Sitting across from me, he shook his head and said, "If someone had just explained, if I had understood what was truly happening, I would have never let myself fade like this." You see, self-intimacy isn't some indulgent remnant of youth. It's a biological exercise, a maintenance practice. Each time you engage in it, you stimulate blood flow to vital tissues, maintaining arterial flexibility and neural responsiveness. You deliver oxygen and nutrients to areas that desperately need them to stay alive. You activate hormonal pathways that help preserve muscle tone, protect memory function, and maintain emotional stability. Without this stimulation, these systems quietly and steadily deteriorate. First, you lose strength you didn't even know you had. Then, you lose mental sharpness. Eventually, you lose the independence that once defined you. It's heartbreaking how few men understand this. They're led to believe that stopping is noble, that surrender is dignified. But there's nothing noble about allowing your body to deteriorate faster than necessary. There's nothing dignified about losing aspects of yourself that could have been preserved through something as natural and simple as maintaining your intimate life, even if only in private moments. I often wonder how different Frank's life might have been if someone had taken him aside at 55 or even 60 and said, "Don't quit. Stay connected to your body. Keep your blood flowing, your nerves firing, your spirit alive." How many stairs would he have climbed more easily? How many days would he have woken up with more energy and clarity? How much longer could he have maintained that fierce light in his eyes that once made him feel invincible? The tragedy isn't aging. Aging is natural, inevitable, even beautiful when embraced properly. The tragedy is unnecessary surrender. The slow, preventable fading of a man who still had so much life to live. Right now, within your own body, the battle between preservation and decline is quietly unfolding, and you possess more power than you think to influence the outcome. Self-intimacy, far from being an embarrassing relic of youth, is one of the simplest, most powerful tools you have to stay strong, sharp, and vibrant for as long as nature allows. But this leads to an even deeper truth that most men never hear. Even if your body changes, even if erections become less reliable, your capacity for pleasure and meaningful climax doesn't have to disappear. In fact, many men discover a whole new dimension of satisfaction they never knew was possible. Stay with me because next we're going to break one of the biggest myths that keeps older men trapped in shame and unlock a new understanding of what your body is truly capable of. 3. You can still experience pleasure without perfect erection. One of the cruelest myths I've seen steal hope from older men is the belief that if they can no longer achieve a rock-hard erection, their days of pleasure are over. It's heartbreaking how many strong, capable men surrender to this lie, believing their body has betrayed them, that they're somehow broken beyond repair. They walk away from one of life's deepest sources of connection, joy, and vitality. Not because they must, but because no one ever told them the truth. I remember one patient, Harold, a former Marine with a grip like steel, even in his late 60s. He sat in my office one rainy afternoon, staring out the window, his voice barely above a whisper when he said, "Doc, it's over for me. I can't do what I used to do. I guess that part of my life is gone now." I asked him gently if anyone had ever explained that orgasm and erection are separate processes, that a full rigid erection isn't required for climax, that his body still had the potential to feel profound pleasure. He turned and looked at me with a mix of disbelief and something deeper, an ache, a grief for all the years he had spent thinking he was finished, when in truth he had simply been misinformed. The reality is that the pathways to pleasure remain alive far longer than most men realize. Even when the body's mechanics change, even when familiar responses evolve, the capacity for orgasm often persists. Sometimes it requires more patience, more exploration, more trust in your own body. But it's there, waiting like an ember under ashes, ready to spark back to life. If only you believe it's possible. It devastates me to think about how many men like Harold spent years, even decades, mourning a loss that was never truly lost. They withdrew from themselves, from their partners, from intimacy, carrying a heavy burden of shame and resignation that should never have been theirs to bear. All because no one told them the simple liberating truth. You are still capable. You are still whole. Your ability to feel, to connect, to experience joy, none of it is gone. It has only changed form. If Harold had known earlier, if he had understood that he didn't have to measure his manhood by the firmness of an erection, how different would his life have been? How many moments of laughter, tenderness, and closeness could he have embraced instead of pushing them away in silent shame? How much more vibrant and fulfilled could his golden years have been? This is why I speak so passionately about these topics. Because behind every silent man who gives up on himself too soon is a lifetime of memories he could have made. A richer, fuller life he could have lived if only he had been given the right information, the right encouragement, the right hope. The body does change. That is inevitable. But change doesn't mean defeat. It means adaptation. It means learning new ways to connect with yourself, to experience pleasure, to celebrate the remarkable resilience that still lives within you. Giving yourself permission to explore these new dimensions isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's courage. It's life refusing to be silenced. And if you think reclaiming your pleasure is powerful, wait until you discover what it does for your emotional health. Because next we're going to explore the hidden emotional benefits of staying sexually active and why neglecting this part of yourself can quietly erode not just your happiness, but your very will to live. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn could change the way you see yourself forever. 4. The emotional lifeline most older men overlook. There's a hidden cost to abandoning intimacy that no one discusses. It's not mentioned in the pamphlets you receive from your doctor. It's not whispered about among friends. Yet, I've seen it unfold repeatedly in the lives of good men who thought they were simply accepting the natural course of aging. What they didn't realize was that by letting their intimate life slip away, they weren't just losing physical pleasure. They were severing one of the deepest emotional lifelines that keeps the human spirit alive. I think of George, a widower who first came to my office in his early 70s. He wasn't sick in the traditional sense. His heart was still beating, his lungs were still strong, but there was a sadness about him, a hollowed-out quality that words could barely touch. He told me that after his wife passed, he saw no point in maintaining any sort of sexual activity, even privately. It felt wrong, he said. It felt selfish. So he let that part of himself wither away, believing it was the noble thing to do. At first, he didn't notice the change. A little more tiredness, a few more restless nights, a little less motivation to get up and greet the day. But as the months turned into years, George found himself struggling with waves of loneliness and sadness that seemed to come out of nowhere. He tried hobbies, social clubs, even church groups, but nothing filled the quiet ache that had taken root deep inside him. He said to me one day, voice trembling, "I thought I was doing the right thing. I didn't know I was slowly letting my own light go out." Science now confirms what George's heart already knew. Regular sexual activity, even solitary activity, helps regulate the body's stress hormones, boosts natural feel-good chemicals like dopamine and oxytocin, and promotes emotional resilience. It's not just about feeling good in the moment. It's about keeping the mind sharp, the heart open, the spirit engaged with life. Without that stimulation, the body's chemistry tilts toward depression, anxiety, isolation. It becomes harder to find joy in simple things, harder to bounce back from setbacks, harder to stay connected to the world around you. I've lost count of the number of men who have confessed to me, often in choked, ashamed tones, that they feel invisible after 65, 70, 75. They believe their usefulness, their relevance, their very aliveness has faded. And yet, time and time again, I've seen those same men reclaim a vibrant, meaningful life when they dared to reconnect with themselves in the most primal human way. Not by chasing some impossible fantasy of youth, but by honoring the needs of the body and soul that remain very much alive, even when the world tells them they should have been buried long ago. If George had known sooner that tending to his intimate life wasn't a betrayal of his grief, not a selfish act, but a profound form of self-respect and emotional survival, how much pain could he have been spared? How much longer could he have carried the spark of joy in his eyes instead of surrendering to the heavy gray silence that eventually overtook him? The real tragedy isn't that men age. It's that they're taught to age by cutting themselves off from the very lifelines that keep them fully human. But it doesn't have to be that way. Even now, wherever you are in your journey, it's never too late to choose connection over isolation, vitality over surrender. And as powerful as emotional health is, there's an even deeper danger lurking when men give up their intimate lives too soon. It's a threat not just to their happiness, but to their very survival. In the next part, I'm going to reveal the two silent forces that rapidly accelerate physical decline in older men and how staying connected to your body could mean the difference between thriving and merely surviving. 5. Fear and shame, the hidden enemies of vitality. If there's one force more devastating than aging itself, it's fear. Fear of judgment, fear of doing something wrong, fear of becoming a shadow of who you used to be. And along with fear comes shame, the silent thief that steals a man's vitality long before age ever could. I've seen this again and again in my practice. It's not the wrinkles or the slowing metabolism that break a man's spirit. It's the heavy hidden burden of believing that he's no longer allowed to be a sexual, passionate being. I think of Alan, a former high school teacher who had inspired generations of students with his wit and warmth. When he first came to see me at 71, he was battling more than just the physical aches of age. He was carrying decades of unspoken shame. As he told me his story, he admitted that somewhere in his 50s, he had quietly decided that his intimate life was over. Not because his body forced him to, but because he believed it was expected of him. He thought that continuing to seek pleasure, even in solitude, would make him seem pathetic, foolish, undignified. And so he turned off that part of himself, locking it away like an old memory too painful to touch. At first, he told himself it was fine. He stayed busy. He volunteered. He focused on being a grandfather. But deep down, a part of him began to shrink. His energy faded. His laughter grew quieter. His enthusiasm for life dimmed bit by bit, year after year, until one day, sitting alone in his house, he realized he no longer recognized the man he had become. He said to me with tears streaming down his face, "I thought I was doing what a good man should do. I thought I was aging gracefully. But what I really did was abandon myself." Alan's story is a painful reminder that fear and shame are not harmless emotions. They are corrosive. They eat away at strength, confidence, and joy from the inside out. They convince men that their needs, their desires, their very humanness are something to be hidden or erased. And in doing so, they fast-track the very decline so many men are desperate to avoid. The truth is, staying sexually connected to yourself is not an act of desperation or foolishness. It's an act of resilience. It's a refusal to let fear dictate the terms of your life. It's a bold stand for your own vitality, your own dignity, your own right to feel alive even as the years march on. If only Alan had known sooner that seeking pleasure was not shameful, but essential. If only he had understood that honoring his body's natural impulses was not a betrayal of age, but a celebration of life. How much more laughter could have filled his days? How many more moments of connection, of inner fire could he have carried with him into the twilight of his years? Every man who has ever quietly packed away his desires needs to hear this. Your vitality is not something you must surrender to meet the world's expectations. Your strength, your spirit, your capacity for joy, they are yours to protect, to nurture, to celebrate. And if you think reclaiming your sexuality is just about feeling good, think again. Because next I'm going to show you how a simple daily practice not only involving intimacy, but also movement can reignite blood flow, rebuild lost strength, and restore a sense of power that many men believe is gone forever. Stay with me because the best is still ahead. 6. A simple daily practice to reclaim what aging tries to steal. There's something almost cruel about the way aging sneaks up on a man. It doesn't come all at once like a sudden storm. It comes gradually like a slow leak in the hull of a once mighty ship. A little less strength here, a little less sharpness there. One day you wake up and realize that the man you see in the mirror is only a shadow of the man you once were. And the tragedy isn't that aging happens. It's that so much of the decline could have been slowed, even prevented with a few simple acts of daily defiance. I think about my patient Samuel, a retired carpenter with hands that had once built homes and cradled grandchildren with equal tenderness. When he came to me at 75, he was facing what he called the slow surrender. His legs ached after walking just a few steps. His grip had weakened so much he struggled to open jars. His once bright spirit was dulled by a fog of frustration and resignation. When we talked, he admitted something I hear far too often. "Doc," he said, voice cracking, "I just stopped moving. I stopped touching. I stopped doing anything that reminded me of the man I used to be. I thought I was supposed to." And behind those words was a heartbreaking truth. Samuel hadn't been defeated by age. He had been defeated by inaction. What Samuel and so many other men never knew is that the body is remarkably forgiving if you meet it halfway. Even after years of neglect, the smallest steps toward reconnection can spark profound changes. Movement, gentle, gradual, deliberate movement combined with private intimacy, even once or twice a week, can restart the engines of blood flow, reawaken sleeping nerves, and signal to the body that it is still needed, still alive. It doesn't require running marathons or lifting heavy weights. It doesn't require chasing the old image of youth. It simply requires consistency. A few minutes each day spent stretching, flexing, breathing deeply. A few minutes spent touching yourself, not out of desperation, but out of respect for the body that has carried you this far. These small acts send a powerful message to your muscles, your heart, your brain. Stay strong. Stay awake. Stay ready. The science behind this is clear. Regular physical stimulation improves circulation, preserves muscle tone, supports joint health, and keeps the nervous system engaged. Regular sexual activity, even solitary, boosts hormones that protect against depression and cognitive decline. Together, these simple practices create a foundation of vitality that pills and procedures can never fully replicate. Samuel took these lessons to heart. He started small, just a daily walk around the block, some light stretching, and allowing himself to reconnect with his own body in a way he hadn't dared in years. Within months, his energy returned. His mood lifted. He smiled more. He laughed louder. He became, as he put it, more myself again. And every time I think about him, I feel a mix of pride and sadness. Pride in what he reclaimed. Sadness that he spent so many years believing he had no right to fight for it. If only more men understood earlier that reclaiming their vitality wasn't about heroics, but about humble daily choices. If only they realized that strength isn't lost overnight. It's surrendered inch by inch, and it can be taken back the same way. But there's one more piece to this puzzle that ties everything together. Because staying strong, staying connected, and staying alive in every sense of the word depends on recognizing one final truth about the silent impact of isolation and the extraordinary healing power of connection. Stay with me because what you're about to discover could redefine how you live the years ahead. 7. Final words before we continue. As I sit here reflecting on the countless stories I've heard over the years, I realize that aging isn't the enemy. The real enemy is the slow, silent surrender to isolation. The quiet choice to disconnect from your body, your desires, your very sense of being alive. And most men tragically make that choice not because they want to, but because they believe it's expected of them. No one tells them that the deeper cost of letting go isn't just physical weakness, but emotional loneliness, a kind of spiritual fading that's far harder to reverse than any muscle loss or memory slip. I think about Leonard, a patient who came to me at 78. On paper, he was doing fine. His heart was strong enough. His labs were decent. But when he sat across from me, there was a heaviness in his eyes, a weight that no medical test could measure. He admitted that over the years he had stopped seeking connection, not just sexual connection, but all connection. He had stopped reaching out to friends, stopped making time for laughter, for closeness, for touch. He believed, like so many men of his generation, that it was noble to age stoically, to bear the loneliness with silent dignity. But inside, Leonard was slowly dying in a way that no stethoscope could detect. His body was alive, but his spirit was shrinking day by day. He told me he would often sit by the window for hours, watching the world go by, feeling more like a ghost than a man. And when he finally said, "I wish I had fought harder to stay connected. I wish I had known it mattered," there was a pain in his voice that I will never forget. It matters. It matters more than most men ever realize until it feels too late. Human beings aren't meant to live in isolation. Our bodies, our hearts, our very souls are wired for connection, for touch, for closeness, for being seen and valued. And when we deny ourselves those basic human needs, it doesn't make us stronger. It makes us weaker. It robs us not only of joy, but of resilience, of the energy and will to keep fighting for a full, vibrant life. If Leonard had known sooner, if he had understood that maintaining intimacy, whether through relationships, through self-connection, through simple acts of reaching out wasn't selfish or foolish, but essential, how many more years of real living could he have enjoyed? How many more sunsets could he have watched with a heart full of gratitude instead of quiet sorrow? How many more moments of laughter, of warmth, of purpose could have filled the spaces that instead grew cold and empty? But here's the truth. It's never too late. No matter how many years have passed, no matter how much you may feel you've lost, the door to vitality, to connection, to meaning is still open. It only takes a single step, a choice to reconnect, to reach out, to honor the parts of yourself that still long to live fully. In the journey ahead, I'm going to share with you the single most powerful principle I've learned about thriving after 60, 70, 80, and beyond. A principle that has nothing to do with denying age or pretending to be young, and everything to do with embracing a deeper, richer strength that grows stronger with time. Stay with me because what comes next could very well redefine everything you believe about aging and show you a path not just to survive, but to truly thrive. Closing conclusion. Aging isn't a sentence. It isn't the end of vitality, purpose, or connection. It's a transition. One that can either drain the life out of a man or open doors to a deeper, more resilient strength he never knew he possessed. Every story you've heard today, Robert, Frank, Harold, George, Alan, Samuel, Leonard, carries the same lesson. The real tragedy isn't growing older. The real tragedy is giving up before your time. It isn't too late. It's never too late to reclaim the parts of yourself that still burn quietly beneath the surface. It's never too late to move your body, to touch your own skin with respect, to reconnect with the energy that has always been yours. You don't have to be defined by decline. You don't have to accept loneliness, weakness, or fading joy as inevitable. You have the power to stand up to yourself, to the false beliefs you were taught about aging, to the silent enemies of fear and shame. Every small act of connection, every quiet moment of honoring your body is a rebellion against the slow fading of life. It's a declaration that you are still here, still strong, still worthy of passion, of vitality, of joy. The next chapter of your life is still being written. You hold the pen. Choose to write it with courage, with intention, and with the fierce knowledge that the best parts of you aren't behind you. They're waiting to be lived fully and unapologetically right now. These lessons are meant to inspire you to live fully and authentically. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned and plan to apply in your own life. Let's support each other on this journey toward embracing these truths. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and here's to living life on your own terms.